All right, guys, welcome back to the River City Rundown, episode number 2. We're excited to be jumping back in on this. Mark, excited to see you on the other side.
Yeah, man.
How you
Can you
doing,
believe
buddy?
it's episode number 2 already?
Right. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we were like ballsy enough to come back for a second one.
I feel like, this is just an opportunity for us to embarrass ourselves even more now. So now we're really in it.
Right. This is just like a monthly Mark and Ryan embarrass each other, and hopefully some people tune in, right? Cool. Well, so tonight's episode, we're going to kind of dive into our standard kind of road versus trail, what's going on in the world. Some races we're going to recap were the Double Chubb 50K, the 24-hour Lions Roar, the Trail of Four Winds race, and the Frisco Railroad on the trail side. And to be honest, there was a little shy of races on the road side. We're still kind of coming back on the road scene a little more. And I think things are ramping up here soon. We'll have a little more content there. We're also going to dive into 100-mile treadmill world record, which bananas, but we'll hold off on that for a second. And we're also going to talk to you guys a little bit about FKTs and a local runner who moved out to Colorado who is coming back in town to take a shot at a local FKT. And I will explain FKTs a little bit more when we get there. And then we'll highlight some of the local races that are coming up. Things like Berryman. Gosh, what do we got on the roadside? We got Festival of Miles coming up. U City Memorial Run, Macklin Mile. So we'll jump into kind of those things throughout the episode. Mark, let's turn it to you. Talk to me about what's going on in your world. Shameless plugs. What's going on with your training? How's life?
No, I appreciate it, man. First and foremost, since this is our second episode, I just have to compliment you for such a great intro. It's almost as if we practiced it. You sounded great, but no, in all seriousness, on my end, I was dealing with an injury for, as Ryan knows, and I know you've been dealing with an injury as well, and we're both kind of on the comeback trail. So I'm finally at a point where I can train consistently again. I can get minutes in. And I mean, honestly, I think for most people that are probably listening, the reality of it is that when you get injured, you become a lot more grateful for, just those days where you thought you were super sluggish, and maybe took those days for granted. You just want those days back and things like that. So I'm just lucky to be able to run again. And that's where I'm at. Spew Out Training, that's my shameless plug. Our team is doing great. They've been consistently training hard, and they're aiming towards some stuff on the roads right now. It's like you said, it's a little bit difficult because we don't have 100% of an idea of what's going to happen in terms of, what races will look like in the fall and such, but we're putting our heads down and we're grinding. But Ryan, you were struggling with an injury, and I know you had actually gotten surgery. How are you feeling now? Kind of getting back in the swing of things.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that we're both on the the comeback train a little bit, right? A race that's on my recap was actually my first race back 3 months post surgery. Actually, first race back pre-pandemic. So since March, I had micro disectomy on my L5S1 from a bulging disc, and I'm still dealing with a lot of numbness in my foot and calf and parts of my hamstring. So it's a little tricky, but I'm able to run, and couldn't be greater to be back running and back racing as well. So on my side, I feel like you said, I feel fortunate to be doing this at all. Yeah, I'm just happy to be out there running, and it's not pretty. It's not fast, not Mark Spiewak fast, but Ryan Maher fast. It's not that. It's slow. It's a lot of hiking on the trails, but it's running, and that's a great place to be. So I'm happy to be there for sure.
Well, glad to see you healthy. I know what you were dealing with was pretty difficult and severe at times, and I'm sorry that that's what you went through. But I'm really glad that you've been able to kind of come out on the other side. And I know you're an inspiration to so many people in the community. Just watching your story and kind of knowing, hey, if you get hurt and you have these situations that happen, there is a way back. And looking at people like you, hopefully will kind of give that that strength and light to somebody that might be discouraged at this point, that might be dealing with something similar.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope that, and honestly, you saying that, to take a step back, I had two people reach out to me who've had the same surgery. One person in our community, Josh Helton, and he's a rocket. He's a speedster, and he's back, doing his thing. And he said, it was rough for 6 to 12 months, and then he felt normal again. And Andy Emerson from Columbia, who is a complete badass ultra runner, who he did 94 miles at the 24-hour Lions Roar, and then the weekend after did Trail of Four Winds and got 7th place. He had the same surgery too. So, hearing stories from other people and sharing their stories like we are now, and hopefully, being able to share my story of coming back and being better down the road will help other people get over their injuries and feel like they can make a comeback too.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's half the fun of it, is the community. I mean, I think that's why we're doing this show in the first place. There's so much to be said for, just how caring and kind people are, and the support is just unreal. So very, very lucky, as well, to have people like yourself and like those individuals you were kind of describing in terms of people who just reach out with the goodness of their heart. I think we all kind of know, even if we don't know what we're going through specifically, I think we all kind of understand it, probably more sometimes than, spouses or, significant others that, might not share it, or friends, family members. This is kind of our fraternity, sorority per se.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, enough about us. Let's get into the nitty gritty of what's been going down. So like I said, we had 4 kind of trail races since the last time we talked. A big classic in the area, and we kind of highlighted a little bit, but the Double Chub 50K. I know it's not the original, but it is the longest standing kind of 50K in our area, put on by the Slugs. It's just a classic race. It's on a classic trail. Most people in the area that run trails, put a lot of work in on the Chubb trail. So this was, I think, maybe the 22nd year running of it. And just something that's really cool about this race is that you have a guy from Wisconsin, Joel Lammers, who has some of the most stout times on this course, that their Wisconsin crew comes down every year for this race. And they're the most fun crew ever. I mean, typical Wisconsin, get done, tough, drink a beer, barbecue your own stuff. I mean, they were partying after the race, offering everyone food and everyone a beer. And that's something that I think is so unique about the trail community. It's like, you're in a park, you're at a trail, and people just kind of hang out and socialize for maybe a little bit longer than you would on the road, because maybe you can't, right? Like the city says, hey, everyone's got to get out of here at certain times. So those guys are so cool. And I think they show like the uniqueness of Double Chub and that race itself. But the race itself this year was the Quadruple Bypass. So the normal route of this race is, and I'm back on the whole trail, which includes some of the flats along the Merrimack River over there. But due to flooding and being in April, they have a Quadruple Bypass route that they do, which takes the race from 2,200 feet of gain to 4,400. Like it just completely changes it and makes it a complete beast of a race. So the runners who were towing the line had, especially first time runners doing their first 50Ks, had a one hell of a race on their hands with that version. So just a couple of things to highlight. Arik Sanika, he's run this race, I think, 4 years, and maybe there was a 4th place, like a 3rd place, a couple 2nd places, and he finally came out and just laid the hammer down this year. He ran a 4:18, which is just bonkers on that course. It's crazy fast, and he really had nobody contesting him whatsoever. John Paul LaVenture came in 2nd, and then James Pratt came in 3rd. And those two guys ran really smart races. It was kind of neat being out there and volunteering and helping out. I got to kind of watch it all unfold, and those guys were hanging back and just playing it smart. I think they knew Arik was out of the picture, and they ran smart races and picked people off to get that podium spot. On the women's side, I'll tout my own wife coming in 1st place. She had a rough day out there with cramps and humidity, but she powered through, and I'm super proud of her for taking the win out there. But the big story for me, shameless plug, my athlete Michelle, who has worked her butt off for almost 16 months now. She PR'd this course by like an hour and a half. She ran this in 2019, PR'd it by an hour and a half, and was 3 minutes behind Jamie. So, that's just nuts. I mean, on the road side, Mark, I mean, an hour and a half PR in 2 years, like that's just nuts. I mean, no matter what you're running, it's crazy. So huge shout out to Michelle. You want to make someone cry at the finish line, watching her flying through there and giving you a big hug. Like, I couldn't be more proud of her. So she had a great race out there. She's just been crushing for the last year. And then you had rounding out the top 3, you had let's see here, Christy Pascia. So one of our friends from over on the Illinois side. She's a big promoter for the Belleville Run Club. She's a great ambassador for the sport. So great days for them. On the 25K, you had Lauren Hendricks, who I think a lot of people in the community know. She's a chiropractor and another badass and speedster. I think Lauren's probably won the 25K a couple times. She came in 1st. And on the men's side, you had Troy Wester, who took out Jeremy Gryther and Matt Wyman, who were just right after him. So 2:11 for Troy and 2:14 for Jeremy Matt. And then we'll shout out Rich Lures too. I think a lot of people in the community know Rich. He has Final Lap Race Management. He ran this and the Ozark Foothills 50K 2 weeks before. So he came in 4th with having a 50K 2 weeks before. So solid 2 weeks for him. And then the women's race was super tight. You had Teresa Kovaric and then Heidi Williams, who were all within 8 minutes of Lauren. So a tight race on their side. One thing I want to talk about on the 50K too is the 2 last finishers. Emily Bowman, she's been in Arch City for a while. Tons of questions. I love seeing that. I know Mark, as a coach, you probably love seeing that too. She used the community, and this is what's so cool about our community, just in general, right? In St. Louis, there's so many people willing to help. And if you have questions you need, there's a million run clubs that can support you, right? And it was so neat to see her use the community for support leading into it with advice and tips, and then go out there and finish her race. Her mom and her boyfriend were there. They were super cute. The mom had brought stringers and stuff to hold up when she crossed, and it was just a really neat moment. And she was super emotional. So cool to see. And then, so in ultras, and I don't know if this term translates in roads, but there's someone who is considered DFL. Do you have any guess what that stands for?
Well, let's see. Man, I don't even know where to take a crack at it, because the only thing similar to it is like when you think of a DNS, did not start, or DNF, did not finish. But I'm not even going to attempt to do it.
All right. So in ultras, DFL, like Ozark Trail 100 actually calls it the last mule in the barn, which is a little bit nicer, but it's dead effing last. right? So when you finish, you're dead effing last. But the cool thing is there's always people hanging out at the end of an ultra to cheer that last person in. Like they get more cheering than the first place person a lot of times. So a buddy of mine that I graduated high school from, Brian Akers, who has an amazing podcast called the Fly Trap Coalition. You guys should check it out. Basically came into this thing pretty much undertrained, right? He had signed up for it in 2019 or 2020 pandemic hit. And he said he was going to do it and maybe put 20 miles in from January 1st, and got it done, and while I would never advise it, and I don't think you would advise it as a coach, it's so cool to see things like that happen because it shows you that your brain can take your body so much further than you think it can. And sometimes doing the crazy thing and just getting on a start line and pushing yourself is exactly what people need to do. And it'll open doors for you and just make you realize that, like, hey, I can do some really hard shit, even if I don't think I can. So it was really neat to see Brian finish and get in under the cutoff. So I know that was a long-winded one. Sorry, but that's Double Chub. That is a race that everyone should put on their calendar in the St. Louis trail scene. The 24-hour Lions Roar down at Mizzou. What I think is really cool, this is a second-year race. It's on Mizzou's cross-country course that I think they just redid recently.
They did,
videos.
yep.
It is gorgeous, man. That course is unbelievable. It's beautiful. So it's a 24-hour race, which in the ultra world is a great, well, actually a 24-hour, 12-hour, and 6-hour race, which is a great format for anyone who's looking to get into ultra running because it allows you to just put out what you can put out for a certain amount of time, right? If you're, let's say you're a slower runner and you might not make a marathon cutoff on the road, you could come out and do a 6-hour or 12-hour race. You could take a 3-hour break if you want and still complete your marathon distance, So it's a neat way to introduce people into those distances, even road distances that we typically think of on this kind of format to get a distance goal for yourself. So I don't want to dive too far into it, but Cody Eubanks, who is from Jeff City, and he ran the 4 for 30, which is a Big's Backyard Ultra style event this year, and came in second place with 158 miles, which is just, I think, somewhere around there, which is just nuts. He set the course record with 120 miles in 24 hours. And Tara Flesh from Iowa won the women's with 78.28 miles. What was really neat about this race was every time the runners would come in, they had their own black. And, I think the loop was like 2.25 miles or something like that. And so when you would come in, you'd pull your 2.25 off and your numbers would just keep adding up. So when you were done with the race, that plaque was your finishing award. And then they would put your finishing distance on there. So it was really cool format how they did that. That's a newer race, something to look out for in April going forward. Next up, we have the Trail of Four Winds, which is a race at the Lake of the Ozarks, which is going to be a huge race in our area for a couple reasons. One, it's at the Lake of the Ozarks, and the Lake of the Ozarks is awesome. Two, it's a great trail race, but it combines everything. The packet pickup is at a really cool bar down at the lake. Everyone kind of hangs out there. The race is at Lake of the Ozarks State Park. And when you're finished, you are right on the water. So, with it being 80 something degrees, this year's race, a lot of people struggling with heat, but you had the lake to go cool off in, which I certainly did myself. Like I said, this was a race that was my first race back. And I really didn't have a whole lot of goals for myself. I threw out the 3-hour time mark, which, was just kind of like a shot in the wind. If anyone wants to hear about my race report, I won't dive too much into it. You can check out the Endurance House podcast, shameless plug. it's on there. But I want to talk about the rest of the race. We had a guy from California that came in, and this race actually drew a lot of people. John Shelby puts this on at the Ozarks. He does an amazing job with the trail community down there. And he came in, I think he ran an hour and 58 for the 25K. The course record, I believe, was 152, which Robert Bruns was like 30 seconds off of that win the first year with 152. He actually came in second place this year, about 208, I think. So just to show you there, a guy coming in 16 minutes slower this year. The heat just crushed people in this race. So you had that on the women's side. Jamie, the missus, her course record got taken down this year by, let me pull her up real fast. She took Jamie's course record down by 4 minutes, I believe. And Jamie ended up coming in fourth place, or third place, I'm sorry, on the day with, let's see, the gap on the women's side was pretty tight after Hillary Campbell from Springfield, 220, and Jamie's was 224. So she took 4 minutes off that course record. And then Catherine, I'm going to butcher her last name, Couturier from Columbia, ran 259, and then Jamie was 3 hours and 37 minutes. So it's pretty tight there for second and third. And on the men's side, you had Robert Bruns and then John Paul at 209. So same thing, really tight for that second and third place. And then our last race we'll dig into, and this is a race that I don't think a lot of people know about, but, and Mark, I don't even know, I mean, maybe you know about this, but there's a Missouri State running records website. Have you ever played around on there?
Yeah, I have, because the St. Louis Track Club at their Frostbite series each year, people will get their age group awards, or sorry, not their age group awards, but they'll get their state records through like doing the 2 mile on different courses. So I'm familiar with it to some degree, but haven't really like dug into it too deep.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't dug into it a ton either. I've played around on there just to see what 50K times are, but the Frisco Railroad is the race in Missouri that has basically all of your ultra state records for the runners locally. And it looks like this year, probably due to COVID, didn't have the 50 mile. It looks like they just did the 50K and the marathon. And this is something I love to see as a husband of a badass runner and the husband of 2 little girls. But Sarah Ibbotson from Ozark, Missouri, took the 50K win in 3 hours and 34 minutes. So, I mean, that's 6:55 pace for a 50K, which is just screaming. And she took the win by less than a minute. So for me, I get all fired up, and I wish I was there, because I know that means that she just outkicked the dude, right? Which is cool to see. I love seeing the ladies taking out a guy and being a guy, right? Like the cool thing about, as the distances go, I feel like women's speed and endurance just comes and shines through. So really cool to see a woman taking the overall win. Andrew Marshall came in second place, and you had Amanda Tolliver coming in second, almost an hour after Sarah's win. And then Andrew took out Colin Langfit by about 2 minutes. So at the front. So that's basically the road or the trail side. That trail race, Frisco Railroad, is crushed gravel, so it's like a Katy Trail. It would be neat to see if we could if there is a Katy Trail 50-50 in St. Louis, that I think you're going to start seeing some more fast times coming from, but it's also in September, so it's hotter. So this Frisco Railroad, for people locally who are looking to like maybe go after a state record in a 50K or 50 mile. This might be a race you guys want to throw onto your calendar. Before we jump over to the road stuff, I kind of feel like this is road related on some levels. I want to talk about Taggart Van Etten. So this is an Illinois guy, and he comes from the triathlon background, and he showed up on the scene last year at Tunnel Hill 100. No one knew who he was. The dude came out of nowhere and was like 5 or 7 minutes off of Zach Bitter's world record trail 100. And people were kind of like, who the hell is this guy? Right. And he's, you know, I guess when you're this fast, you can be cocky, but he didn't hold any punches after he's done. He's like, I'm coming back and I'm breaking his world record. So he set up a live stream for his 100-mile treadmill world record and took off. And this is just nuts. He took off. Gosh, what did he run? Yeah, so he took off 37 minutes and 10 seconds off of Zach Bitter's treadmill world record, running at 11:32:05. 11:32:05 for 100 miles. I mean, that's just mind blown. Like, I don't know how you run on a treadmill, Mark. I could barely go like 5 miles on a treadmill. I don't know about you. I don't know that I've ever seen you put treadmill anything on Strava, so I can't imagine it's a place that you like to spend much time.
No, not very much. I think that makes it even more impressive because there's not just the physical component to this event, but there's obviously a mental component due to the fact that it's 100 miles. But you're doing 100 miles on a treadmill, and for anybody that knows what it's like to run on a treadmill, it is very boring unless you have, max entertainment. So kudos to him. It's incredible. Yeah. And also your strides altered a little bit too. So you're not going to be running as normal as you would if you were running outside. So I think that's also another layer to kind of think about, like, especially for somebody that's running 100 miles, your form's going to break down. I can't even imagine, what it took for him to kind of stay upright and all that different stuff. I mean, I would have fallen off that treadmill.
Yeah. I mean, when he was done, he got champagne showered right off the bat, and it was in a bar. So maybe that helps out with people. But so this guy knocks that out. He up next, and I think it's like in a month, he's running a race called 6 Days in the Dome. He's doing an indoor track. He's going after Zach Bitter's indoor track 100-mile world record. And then he's already said he's going back to Tunnel Hill to take Zach's trail 100-mile record. So this guy is just like on a wrecking spree.
Of the guy named Zach specifically, which I think is hilarious. Are they friends?
I'm sure they've communicated. Like, it's such a small world, and typically like people communicate it or help each other in these efforts. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. I could assume if Zach Bitter knows that he's specifically coming for all of his records, there might be a little love lost there, right? I mean, someone takes one of yours, not a big deal. But when a guy is specifically gunning for all 3 years, that might fire me up a little bit.
It's personal, at some point when he gets there. It's kind of like you're on Strava and, somebody takes one of your course records and all of a sudden you notice that they've gotten the confidence because they took one of yours, they can take all of yours. It's, I can't lie. It's a little bit of hurt to the ego.
Right. Well, if you want to jump into kind of the road scene and kind of talk a little bit about some of our local athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. For the road side of things right now, it's been a little bit difficult. I feel like I'm saying this over and over again, but there just hasn't been a lot of opportunities to race. Bigger of a running company, bigger of a race management, put on the Gateway Resilience Run. They had a half marathon just about a month ago, and then they just put on a 5-mile race a couple weeks ago in the park. And it was just really cool to be able to kind of just be at an event again. I think for a lot of us, it's just like the experience of just seeing people who are happy running, seeing bibs on people's, shirts and seeing people back in the park racing. I think that's another fun part of this. Forest Park's obviously had people running throughout this entire pandemic, but just knowing that events are kind of back. So they did a great job. There was some competitive runners in that field. One notable athlete was Amy Markhorst. She's kind of a St. Louis celeb on the just in the fact of what she does with the radio at Camo X, but she's also a very fast runner herself, and she ran very, 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 very fast on a very hot and humid morning. So I'll be honest with you, I didn't dig through the results on the Gateway Resilience run. I didn't recognize all the names through it, but I do know that they had a good solid pack that was out there, just in terms of numbers. So kudos to Big River Race Management for putting together such a good event.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that's going to be wild is we're going to have a million events come the fall. Like we're going to be talking about all road stuff come fall. But right now we're still kind of feeling things out. I think race organizers are still working through permitting and all of that stuff. So
yeah, it definitely makes it a little more difficult because you're dealing with like closing down roads and there's a little bit more components to that. But there was another event, Chain Rocks duathlon, not triathlon. That was an awesome event. It's at the Chain Rocks Bridge, which if you've not gone out there to exercise, whether that's walk, bike, or run across that bridge, definitely highly recommended. It's a really cool part of St. Louis history, and they put on a duathlon every single year. That's affiliated with Big Shark. I know Big River Race Management also does the results there. Shout out to a good friend of mine named Rob Potter, who just smoked the competition. He was a newbie on the duathlon side. He's more of a distance runner that's been injured so much that he has kind of, I think, fallen in love with cross training in the kind of the span of those injuries. And now you're seeing him, being able to compete at a high level. So that was his debut, and that was a lot of fun to watch that. And that was also another event that I know a lot of people I call it the triathlon community, because a lot of those triathletes participate in the duathlon.
right.
They did not brave swimming in the Mississippi River this time through, which makes a ton of sense from that standpoint. I don't know if it would draw more fans if they did, but the event in itself is just a great event each year, and it's cool to be able to see like a St. Louis staple event be able to go off down there. So that was fun to see on the St. Louis side. Right,
for sure. It's nice to see those back. And be honest, like the duathlon interests me a ton. I got into this crazy sport by doing a sprint try, and I've swam my whole life, but it was like my least favorite part of it. The biking and the running were fun. So it would be cool to jump into a duathlon and see what I could do at some point.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, I think, something that has been, good about the situation in terms of like what you can and can't do in terms of events. Like they've done a really good job, I feel like, on the triathlon side of being able to kind of put on spaced events, and you're seeing that with the duathlon. I mean, I feel like they did all these events. I just want to note that they've all done a really safe and they've executed it in a really healthy way that I think makes people very, that you're not coming down there and feeling unsafe. And if that's something that, is a worry of yours and you're trying to figure out like, what do events look like right now? Just know that every event director in St. Louis is really taking this serious, and they're doing a great job kind of following those protocols. So that was something that I took note at all the events that I, kind of saw those last couple weekends. And we mentioned that with Go St. Louis and, the stuff that's, and I'm sure it's kind of the same on the trail side.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everybody's, trying to do what's being recommended right now and put races on safely, and those things are changing. So it's one of those things where, it's updating all the time, and it's nice to see now that the recommendation for, outside, basically they're saying right now, if you're outside, there's a very minimal chance that you're going to be able to contract COVID. So hearing that's nice. And then being able to get back out with people is great. So that's awesome. So hit me with our, I guess you could say our famous athletes from St. Louis. I think, we want to focus on stuff locally, but it's cool to highlight the people that have, maybe got their start here, but have moved on to greener pastures, if you will.
No, I think that, anybody from St. Louis, takes a great deal of pride in anybody that leaves here. You're always, St. Louis is a part of everybody's hearts. I mean, you look at Bradley Beal in the NBA, Jason Tatum, they both shout out St. Louis as much as they can. I know other cities, you obviously have that bond, but St. Louis is just special. And so we really take note at the people who either started here, whether it was high school or they came here for college, or we even take, some pride in some of those people that move here for like a year and then they move away. Anything affiliated with St. Louis is something that excites people in the area. And we have a lot of great athletes who've come out of here. And, right now we have some names just for you to be thinking about, because professional track right now is really heating up. It's Olympic year coming up, and we have a lot of athletes that are trying to qualify for the Olympics in Tokyo with the trials coming up in the new Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. That's going to happen this summer. So you have a lot of athletes that are going to try to take a kind of crack at that side. And so, like, one name that will pop up for a lot of people that will know this guy is Amos Bartelsmeyer, which I believe his cousin is Andy. And quick shout out to Andy Bartelsmeyer for running during the Stanley Cup a Blues flag from Wildwood all the way out to the stadium at Enterprise Center. I mean, that was incredible. So shout out to Andy. But Amos himself, he ran for MICDS. In high school, he's been around the scene for a while now. Ended up running for Georgetown in college, and he actually just recently signed in the last few months with Bowerman Track Club. And for those of you that don't know about Bowerman, it's kind of the premier track team for Nike that's out there, and they have had some very, very fast runners that are a part of it. Amos is somebody who's run ridiculously fast, low 350s in the mile. He's representing Germany coming up in the Olympics. I'm sure he's going to be somebody that's going to make their team. But he's kind of heating up and starting to race, and you're going to start seeing him probably running more of these kind of 1500s. Another guy named Jordan Mann, a good friend of mine. You guys might remember that name. He ran the Festival of Miles for 2 years straight, but Jordan also ran it MICDS with Amos. They were a couple of years apart. And so Jordan actually, for several years before Amos really took off, was always talking about there was this kid on his track team who played soccer who was going to be a really, really good runner. And Jordan's like the ultimate hype man for anybody. And Amos turns out to be, world-class athlete. And who else does? Jordan too. He had a really successful college career, ended up running for Brown University. After that, he did his 5th year at Providence, and now has started his own club called the Ocean State Athletic Club. And their organization out of I call it the Providence area, and they've done good work, and he's kind of led the charge and got them sponsored by New Balance. And he actually just recently raced this last weekend at Mount Sac. Are you familiar with Mount Sac at all, Ryan?
I've heard of it. And I've heard, because is there like a standard big race there every year?
Yeah. So every year Mount Sac is kind of the premier track meet of the spring. There's lots of great ones that pop up, but a lot of people tend to run really fast there. And with it being kind of a early-ish meet, not super early, but things are heating up, it was a good opportunity for him to get his feet wet. He unfortunately didn't have the best of races. He was a little bit disappointed, but he opened his season with an 840 steeple, which he'll need about, probably give or take, about 12 seconds or faster than that, depending on how they race, come trials day, to be able to actually, compete for an Olympic spot. But if he can make that cut in the trials, which he's already run 828 before, he's one of those guys that could make a run for it. So just knowing that there's 2 St. Louis guys that are doing some special things, just worth kind of keeping your eye out on things. A couple of good friends of mine, Julia Conan and Molly Culver. Julia runs for the Northern Arizona Elite team out there in Flagstaff, Arizona, with Ben Rosario, who is formerly the owner of Big River Running Company. So one of the co-founders there. He started a running club out there in Flagstaff, and Julia has been doing great. She's hasn't raced in a little bit of time, but she did run a 2:29 marathon at the Marathon Project, which I don't know if you were able to catch that event or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
she's a beast.
Yeah. Incredible.
I mean,
and so,
it was really neat. What was really neat, Mark, was when we were all met up and watched the Olympic trials, and being able to watch Julia there. We were all losing our minds, that was it. And so it's really cool to be able to follow her now and Ben Rosario and the NAZ Elite. I mean, that's a neat follow as well for people locally who are not, maybe aren't aware of the local tie to that program. They're a good follow on social media and YouTube, and now we just have another local person with Julia to solidify why we should support, and follow. Not to mention they have some pretty sweet swag too. Their team kits are pretty solid.
Yeah, they've done a really good job with their marketing, and I think that they're really. I mean, Ben Rosario has always been one of those guys who I've always said, like, if you told him to go stand on a bench in the middle of a park and tell people, on a megaphone why they should run, I feel like that guy would do it. He's super passionate about the sport, and he'll do whatever it takes to kind of get people to watch track and field, watch cross country, all these events that we might not necessarily pay attention to. But he's built a great crew out there. And with adding Julia, it's been a lot of fun for us, especially, us who were good friends with her, still are good friends with her, even if she's gone. But it's been a lot of fun just seeing stuff also too from the St. Louis component. Like you said, like there's that tie. So she'll get going this spring in some track races. And I believe that she's going to go try to get a cut in the Olympic trials 10K as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on her. And then there's another woman who's a good friend of mine named Molly Culver. You might know that name. She ran a 2:32 marathon at the Marathon Project. Both Julia and Molly, their stories are unique because Julia started as a soccer player basically her entire life until she actually played soccer all the way through college and then had a 5th year for running. And Molly swam her entire life. And then actually Molly became an ultra marathoner after she was a swimmer. She won the North Face 50 miler actually twice, and then transitioned over to being a distance runner, then qualified for the trials in the marathon, and then ended up running, this 2:32. And now she's going after this 10K Olympic trials qualifier. So it's exciting, man. I mean, it's really cool. You have to run under 33 minutes in the 10K to make that standard. But, both of those women are capable of doing it. But yeah, Molly's story, just diving into that real fast for you.
Yeah.
Ryan, you'd be really intrigued by this, but her dad coaches a group called Culver Training, and similar to like what we do with Spivak Training, but he's primarily like triathlon focused.
Okay.
And I guess like after Molly had graduated, she just kind of started running and was trying to be a part of their, their group and things like that. And I guess there was somebody in the group that was training for North Face at the time. And so her dad was like, okay, I'm going to do it as well. And so she jumped in it too. And it just like, she just took off. Like she said she accidentally won that race. Like she had no idea. She crossed the finish line. She finished. They were giving her all this swag. She didn't really know what was going on. And then they invited her on the stage, and she like had a private dressing room. And she just like was so confused because she didn't realize what had happened. So it's one of those like dreams that happens, and you realize. And I guess she wore the Nike Shocks when she ran that 50 miler too. Even funny.
You gotta be kidding me.
It's
my
crazy.
Gosh. And that's like you hardly the other wild part of it is like you hardly ever hear of that, of what she did. Like normally what happens is she wins a 50-mile ultra, and then all of a sudden she's going and running all the big ultras, right? Like some sponsor picks her up, blah, blah, blah. But instead she goes away from the trails where she's crushing it out of nowhere and just starts destroying road stuff, and now going after 10K. I mean, that's like, that story doesn't exist in running.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, her story needs to be told.
Yeah, no, well, the Mission to Speed podcast, shameless plug. We just interviewed Molly and her dad.
There you go.
We also interviewed with Julia Conan on there. So if you you get bored and you don't want to listen to Ryan and I anymore,
Yes.
dive into my annoying voice and listen to that show. But no, it's pretty incredible. She always says that she's the Benjamin Button of distance running, going the opposite side of things, which is crazy. So Julia and Molly, definitely they're two good friends. They're both very competitive and have done some pretty special things. So definitely worth kind of following. And then, a lot of you guys probably know this name, but Colleen Quigley has been a name in the community for many years, not just by her success, but, her dad's a very, very successful high school cross country coach. He's now with Nearing's High School. He was with CBC at one point, coaching his son, Dan Quigley, over there. Dan Quigley, a great guy, very, very good dude who unfortunately had some injuries that kind of riddled his career, but he was sub 14 in the 5K. Had a run at the professional side of things with the Oregon Track Club for I would say probably 2 or 3 years. I could be wrong on that, but ran at Mizzou, was part of one of those classes at Mizzou where a lot of really good Missouri kids stayed in state and decided not to go elsewhere, and they went to Mizzou, and that was just awesome. Cool. Put together a super class. So he was a part of that, and they had tons of success. Unfortunately, him and those teammates got hurt many times, but they ended up their 5th year actually ended up kind of had the last hurrah. So that was cool to kind of see that, be saved for just the sake of the good story. But yeah, so his sister, Colleen, incredible runner. She's been from, she ran at Nearing's High School with her dad, ended up running at Florida State. You probably know she won nationals in the steeple, goes off, runs an Olympic team. So now she's, high level celeb coming out of the St. Louis area, but she's left the Bowerman Track Club in the last couple months, and I will not even pretend to know what happened because I have no in with her by any means. So I won't sit here and act like I have any insight. It was just a very interesting move, and not criticizing it, just very interesting in the fact that here's a high level runner. She is somebody who has an incredible amount of following on the social media side. I think what I'm most impressed about with Colleen is that her ability to connect with her fans is awesome, but her ability to connect with high school kids and do it in such a way where she promotes a really positive message for those kids. And you could tell they feel really, they feel really attached to her and her story. And then she does a great job communicating with them back, So I think she's done a good job kind of pulling those athletes in. And currently she's running with a new coach, so she's not with Bowerman anymore. But she, I don't know, I can't confirm. I don't know if she's signed with anybody officially yet for big level sponsors, but she has kind of these little sponsors that are representing her right now. So Colleen Quigley will definitely be somebody to kind of be looking for at the coming trials and steeplechase. And then one more runner that we can't forget is Emily Sisson, who is another St. Louis athlete. And Emily is an incredible runner. She's run 15:05 in the 5K. She has made a world championship team. She's one of those athletes that if she has the right day, she's going to make an Olympic team. Low 220 marathoner. And so we're rooting her on. She was a Parkway Central grad, came here her junior year, ended up running here in St. Louis for 2 years, ended up going to Wisconsin for a year, transferred over to Providence, is now running professionally for New Balance, and she'll be out. I don't know what her race schedule looks like, but I'm assuming that she'll start to heat up on the track as well pretty soon. So that's my mouthful of, kind of these.
I love it.
St. Louis alum, we'll say, who are going to be running. So definitely keep your eyes out. And if you're somebody who's interested in learning more about track and field and those different stuff, you can go ahead and just search the stuff on different websites. There's a letsrun.com. It's a good website to kind of dig into. Flow Track, they'll charge you an arm and leg, but they have great information on there. Runner Space, there's a lot of good things there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you shedding light on all of those athletes. I know of most of them, but I didn't know backstories. It's so cool to hear that. And when we have elite athletes like that as a community, let's get behind them, and support them and follow them. It's a representative of our area, which is just so cool to be able to follow for sure. Another one, and I don't know if you follow it, Mark, but Sidious Mag.
Yeah,
they do a really good job of the track and kind of your world of athletes. They do a really good job over there. All right. I know we're getting close on time, but we wanted to talk specifically about Gryhon Ketterling and FKTs. So a lot of people in my world probably know what FKTs are. It stands for fastest known time, and it's something that has been around for a long time, but has really come to light in the last year with the pandemic. So in the ultra running community, when races went by the wayside, people were bumming, but what happened was a lot of those ultra athletes started taking to FKTs, and the FKT scene has just gone bonkers in the last year, with old fastest known times that have been around for years being taken down and then being taken down and taken down by other people. I mean, it's kind of a crazy follow if you do nerd out on it. But what has happened and what Gryphon is trying to do is he's attempting, or he was going to attempt, the fastest known time on the Katy Trail. I believe the Katy Trail is about 237 miles. Don't quote me on that. You can go to fastestknowntime.com and look up all that information on there. But Gryphon was attempting to do that on Sunday. That was his goal, was to run it on Sunday, and he was running it for the Boys and Girls Club of America, which is a nonprofit, and something Mark and I want to do each week is really highlight a nonprofit, a local nonprofit. Boys and Girls Club has chapters throughout the country. They have a chapter in St. Louis. I'll let you guys kind of dig in on their website, but what they do is absolutely amazing, and it's something that I know is near and dear to Gryphon's heart. And so he was raising money during this attempt for the Boys and Girls Club. And I think his goal was $1,500. He's already hit that. But after I tell you what happened to Gryphon, I encourage everybody to donate a little something to him to really support what he's doing. So Gryphon was actually carjacked on Friday night while traveling in town to take this on. He apparently was pushed down, and I'll link in our kind of show notes on this to his YouTube, so you can kind of follow along, and his Instagram, so the community can support him. But he was kind of roughed up in the carjacking. Now, he wasn't hurt bad. His girlfriend Taylor wasn't hurt bad, but the car was stolen, and he had some injuries to his feet and hips, and decided, it just wasn't smart for him to attempt this while banged up. So he put it on hold. He did get his car back. Not a lot was taken. So in the grand scheme of things, he's safe, and that's what's most important. But something I encourage people to kind of keep an eye on is Gryphon and his training for the FKT. So the current FKT, there's different levels of FKT, all right? So I'll get these out real quick. You have your supported, which is just you have a crew. So someone meets you and gives you food and water and aid throughout the whole attempt. You have unsupported, which means you have to carry everything on you, including water, or you have to source water along the way. And then there's self-supported, where you would go out and put like drops of food throughout the trail. And an FKT can be anything from, 13 miles up to the whole Appalachian Trail, right? I mean, they really vary. So the original FKT for what Gryphon was doing was the supported, and that just got taken down on March 7th to 3 days, 1 hour and 54 minutes. Eric Strand had that prior. Then it was dropped down in March or in September by Marlon Weekly, and then Clinton Strawn took it down again. So Gryphon is going to be the fourth guy, and this just tells you how big FKTs are right now. The fourth guy to do this in the last year.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. So, and something that I think is neat, and maybe on the roadside, I don't know that a lot of people will realize it, but these FKTs are there for road people to put together. And Mark, you and I kind of jumped in, and we're talking about this beforehand, but places like Grant's Trail or, connecting all of the greenways somehow, like, or doing it in a 20-mile run, or, putting together a route that's a point-to-point route on the greenways or around St. Louis is a way for kind of the road people to start throwing down some FKTs if they don't have races going on, or maybe there's a fall marathon and they have a training run of 20 miles and there's a 20-mile route. That could be a way for someone locally to drop the hammer on a greenway and get the ball rolling in it. It's fun competition, and it's just another way to, for us who are looking for a little something that carrot to dangle out in front of us to keep us motivated. Something to think about for everyone in the area, road and trail. It just brings recognition to our area too, which is great.
So no, definitely, I appreciate you bringing that up. And we're thinking of Gryphon, we're thinking of his girlfriend Taylor. It's a horrible situation that they've gone through. I know both of them are very tough, very strong people, and I'm glad that they have each other. They're out there, still grinding out the miles, and they're two of the toughest people that you'll meet, and they love this sport. They give back a lot. They have both worked in the running community here in St. Louis. They both worked at Big River Running Company. Gryphon also coached for the St. Louis Blazers. He helped out with the kids there. So they've just been good people, giving a lot to the sport. So I think it's important just to think about, if you have something you can donate, go ahead, and we'll look forward to rooting him on in this next quest. And I hate to say this, but man, when he put it out there that he's going to do it, it just made me think, do you think there's people who are thinking about doing it too? That's the hardest thing about it. I'm like, it's this, like, you cringe because you're supposed to keep it quiet. You're not supposed to keep it quiet. So,
right.
So
yeah.
I know that there was somebody recently who had mentioned it to me without knowing about him doing it. And I was like, well, I know somebody else doing it. So I'll be very curious to kind of see what happens in the next year, but kudos to anybody that's willing to do that. But I know we're wrapping up these last couple minutes here. But do you want to kind of hit some stuff that's coming out on the trail for us that we should?
Yeah, for sure. I'll jump into trail, and I want to say one thing too before we kind of wrap up, that we're going to start getting a little creative and doing some of our picks of the week or picks of the month, if you will. We'll kind of keep you guys posted on that. We would encourage your feedback on it, and we will ask you for your feedback. But just something to look for coming forward is us trying to highlight some local areas, maybe local establishments and that sort of thing. But on the trail side, I'm heading down Friday morning to Berryman, which is the next Slugs event, which is another classic event, 50-mile marathon. We're working the aid station there at Brazil Creek. That is coming up this weekend. Always a huge race. Weather's looking great for it. Next thing we have is Rock and Roots Trail 10K by Fleet Feet, a new race for them. So it'll be interesting to see this course, and people think, Jules over at Fleet Feet does an amazing job with her races. So I'm sure she'll knock it out of the park. On the road side and track side, Mark, I know we got a little more pickup coming on that side.
Yeah, we're getting some momentum. We're getting some momentum for sure. There's this big run that's coming up at Queenie Park this coming weekend, St. Charles Half, which is out. I believe that one's out on the Katy Trail. I don't know that entire course, but we know a lot of people who are doing that. So that'll be an exciting one. Fleet Feet puts that one on. Ferguson Twilight, shout out to Dwayne James, who is the race director. They've done a great job with that event for the last decade. It's good that they're back in person this year, so they'll be doing stuff. I just virtually registered for that event, so if you can't make it in person to most of these events, they have virtual options, and if you want to support them, so they'll be around next year to run them. I highly recommend that. U City Memorial Day Run, obviously that one's sold out, but you can be a part of that virtually. It's one of the more historic events that St. Louis puts on every single year. Ryan, I think actually
saw yeah, that's my 10K PR, 40:11.
Yes, I remember that.
11 seconds off of the 40 mark.
It was not easy.
I know. One day.
Yeah, well, it was fun to watch you that day. But yeah, then Hospital Hill is a famous one out there in Kansas City. Tough hills, hence the name. But it's one that their community really rallies around every single year and enjoys doing. And then of course we have to mention the Macklin Mile, which will be June 26th. That's the fastest downhill mile that we know of in St. Louis. They bigger of a running company puts that one on. They do a great job. So that's the kind of stuff. And then can't get away without talking about the Festival of Miles. I'm on the board for the festival, so shameless plug. But the Festival of Miles, every single year, they pick a different athlete in the St. Louis community who has been, affected by something tragic and, that really kind of needs the support of the community. And they put together a charity-based track event, which is not just your typical track event. It's a night of all mile races and a women's 800 in the past. And some of the best runners from the high school side around the entire country show up for this. And then some of the best runners in the country show up for the professional race at the end of the night. It's a really quick track meet. Not entirely sure what they're going to do this year in terms of spectators, but right now they're still going to have the event. You can still support the event and support the athlete in need. She is an individual who ran, I believe, with Matt Helbig in college over there, or college or high school, one of the two. She unfortunately was shot, just in kind of a senseless, tragic, accident that had happened through her just being out to dinner. And so she's a former Division II standout runner, just an incredible person and somebody to support, get behind it. I don't have her full name, so I don't want to do it wrong with sending you the wrong names. We'll go ahead and kind of put that maybe in the post show notes, how you can support her and how you can support this event. But Festival of Miles, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hoka's sponsoring it this year, so they're going to be the presenting sponsor. It'll be on Runner Space, so you can watch it live. And Ben Rosario is going to bring his team with Northern Arizona Elite, so there'll be some St. Louis taste to this event from the out of state folks. So
I love it.
That's the roundup on the track side.
I love it, and I hope that we're able to go, because I do want to go this year. It's something that I've wanted to take part in and watch you speedsters do what you do.
It's a lot of fun. So
yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this again with me, man. Maybe if you felt like I did a good enough job, we'll do it again.
Well, we've got a pick of the month to do, so we have to go.
Yes.
We got to go eat some food somewhere and talk about it next month. So at the very least, we'll be back to discuss our favorite sandwich, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
find us.
Awesome. Well, this
and everything. And give us some suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, so episode 2. Let's call it a night, and we will see all of you guys in the next episode. Thank you for checking it out. This is River City Rundown. Ryan Maher out. Mark
you walk out. Thanks so much.
See you guys.